yeah, but I need to get to work.
Well, the idea, and this is the thing that the Movimento Passe Livre, this really dedicated, disciplined, idealistic, horizontalist group, they had a theory that they had been developing since 2005 that they will intensely plan the kind of interventions and demonstrations and direct action that will ignite a popular revolt. And in ways which I think are often like not really held too consciously or not analyzed too carefully, it is always assumed that a popular revolt will somehow be good. But it happens and it's not good. It doesn't go the way that they want. It doesn't go the way that they want at all. Because, as you say, the people come out in support of this thing that they have started. But the people is always a concrete configuration of persons. It's not the persons that they expect to come into the streets that they actually see. Part of this could have been the fact that center-right media really takes their demonstrations and runs with it. So the people that hear about it are the people that are watching that media. Part of it could be that they've chosen the streets as a site of contention. They've believed that downtown Sao Paulo, the center of the largest city, is where like the struggle should happen. But then they also really realize very quickly, oh, this is like the center of the economic capital. The people that live right here aren't really the working class Brazilians that we believe to be like the real people. There's all these other people, and these are not the people that I expected to come out. And these new people are yelling at us or attacking our friends or ripping flags down or saying that this is actually a movement against the left, when we all know that just 2 weeks ago, it was only the left that was actually here. And so they were quite skilled at putting together a plan that would cause the people to come into the streets. But it just turned out that when the people come into the streets, that doesn't necessarily push history forward in the way that you expect. You often, no one knew what to do with this explosion of energy, with this explosion of humanity on the streets. The original organizers didn't know what to do. The mayor of Sao Paulo didn't know what to do. Dilma Rousseff, the president of the country, didn't know what to do. But a lot of people realize, especially right-leaning libertarian kids, realize, oh, this is the meaning of this thing is up for grabs. This is ripe for contestation. We can try to re-signify what this is actually all about. And a group of kids that are funded by think tanks in the United States, intent on pushing the country to the right. One of them is trained under the Koch brothers.
Jesus.
They make a bid to re-signify what this is all about. And I think that they ultimately, in the long term, win. They create a group that is meant to trick people into thinking that they're the same group as the original organizers, to steal the thunder, to steal the sympathy that has been generated by the original punks and leftists. And it works. They end up leading protest movements into 2015, 2016 that call for impeachment, that support Lava Jato, and then they're elected into Congress, and now they're major political players, whereas the original punks and anarchists are not really on the scene anymore in Brazilian politics.
Toussaint, I know you wrote some questions. You want to ask the second question to Mr. Bevins?
Sure. One moment while this loads. Okay. Why do you think this is sort of taking a zooming out kind of lens? Why do you think it's important to take a global approach in comparing and contrasting protests worldwide?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is, I make the point in the introduction that it is essential to, okay, when this happens, just because we're in this story, when this happens, other parts of the global media, other correspondents, other journalists that work for the most powerful and loudest outlets in the global system. I think it's a big problem that we are the loudest outlets in the global system. But the U.S. corporate media, the English language corporate media, other people in my class that understand even less than I do of what is happening on the streets, they say, "Oh, well, Brazil's doing a spring. This is the Brazilian spring." So the media begins to interpret this thing as if it is Tahrir Square, as if it is the type of uprising that has started in North Africa a few years earlier. And then in Gezi Park, and this happens weirdly through my Twitter account, is that I do a tweet that goes viral in Gezi Park. And then in Turkey, people are sending me all these messages saying, like, the whole world is Gezi, the whole world is Sao Paulo. So in this decade, if you want to tell the true story of how this decade evolves, you see not only some movements on the ground self-consciously copying something that they saw elsewhere. So Occupy Wall Street is Adbusters magazine saying we're going to do Tahrir Square in America. Hong Kong 2014 is Hong Kong saying we're going to do Occupy Wall Street, which was a copy of Egypt, which was inspired by Tunisia. And, you know, fascinating to me, I think, is that by 2014, when they do this new copy, it's already become clear that Tahrir Square didn't really work out. So on the one hand, to tell the story, you have to look at the ways that the movements copied other movements, even when the contexts were wildly different. But you also have to look at the ways in which the way the thing proceeds is affected by the way that the media interprets it. And the media often interpreted it in a very one-dimensional, stupid way, as if it's like that other thing that looks kind of the same. Oh, look, there's lots of people in the streets. It looks like the fall of the Berlin Wall. It's like the same as the fall of the Berlin Wall. Or like, oh, look, there's a bunch of people on the streets in Brazil. They're doing Arab Spring, even though that started as dedicated attempts to overthrow dictators who'd been in power for decades, whereas Brazil was governed by a popular democratically elected left of center president. So it, like, this kind of strange short circuiting happens everywhere. So to tell this story, I think you have to both point out the ways in which they shared things because they tried to share. They had commonalities because they were trying to reproduce things that they saw elsewhere, but also the ways in which their very, very real differences were flattened or erased by media coverage. And just to finish the answer, that first thing of the two, that first half of that first part of the dynamic is related to what you read in your introduction, right? When people respond, something very bad happens. They know that there's been a government abuse. They know that there's been a horrible case of police brutality. This shocks me. This is something we must take action against. I think this process of copying or doing something that you know has been accelerated in the age of, you know, intense mediatization. It's not just social media. It's just everything's media. We're always on the media. We're always interacting with each other in mediated ways rather than face to face. And so a lot of the repertoire, the package of contention, the very specific recipe of rebellion that people reach for is one that has become kind of globally hegemonic because we all live on the same internet. And so people are grabbing that thing. And so often the book is really about, I think, the unexpected success of a particular repertoire of contention. And then what happens when it accidentally or unexpectedly gets way, way more people on the streets than anybody had ever imagined.